Hi, this is Dan Danford. We're doing a series of podcasts for DadsDivorce.com called Money Made Easy. We usually take a look at a question that's been posed by one of the viewers to the site. This week's question is pretty common. I'm about to retire and will be living off of my savings. What is a safe withdrawal rate? This didn't used to be an issue, but it's become a huge issue today because most people depend on their retirement savings for a big portion of their retirement income. Now, way back in history, we talked about the three-legged stool, and basically that was Social Security, your company pension, and then any family savings. But in truth, it's become more of a ladder because the company pensions are more and more rare. So most folks are basically dependent on Social Security and whatever savings they have accomplished as a family. Now, because of that, the issue of how much money you can spend has become a huge issue. And we've addressed that with a number of different techniques. Probably the most relevant or the best one that we have today is something called Monte Carlo simulation. Basically what we can do is we can load your information about your portfolio into a computer and then enter in your life expectancies, your spouse's life expectancy, and then we can look at the returns for the various kinds of investments over the last 50 or 60 years. And using this information, we can actually run thousands of illustrations on your situation. Now, why that's important is because it doesn't give us an answer. It doesn't come back and say, this is what you can do. But what it does is it gives us a range of likely outcomes. And it tells us that if you do this, there's a good chance that this will happen. Okay, so it's very helpful when we evaluate things just to kind of get a feel. Most times when we run those calculations for people, the Monte Carlo simulation comes up with a kind of general rule of thumb that says if you spend about 4% of your savings a year, there's a high likelihood that your money will last you the rest of your life. Now, obviously, everybody's situation is different, so we can't use that as an absolute rule of thumb, but that does happen most of the time when we look at it. And that's with an 85 or 90% reliability that the money will last you the rest of your life. So that's the rule of thumb. Now, here are a couple of things that I think are relevant factors. First of all, you got to understand that everybody spends differently. Most of the research today tells us that there are about 3 different spending levels or a pattern that develops in retirement. Most people, because we're relatively healthy and active when we retire today, will spend as much or more in the early years of retirement as we do when we're working. That's because oftentimes we travel, we do things that we've always wanted to do, and those things sometimes are kind of expensive. So traditionally people spend more, and then as they slow, as they get older, they typically spend less in retirement. And then towards the end of their lives, when they have health issues and hospitalization and medications and things like that, they spend more again. So the traditional pattern is you spend more, then you spend less, then you spend more again. Okay? Now, all the time you need to keep into account that 4% as kind of a target. Now, one more thing that's interesting about that is this isn't like when you're working. When you're working, you get a paycheck every week or every month, and anything that you don't use paying bills, you can go spend. Okay? Well, retirement isn't quite like that. I mean, you need to take money out of your accounts as you need it, and then what you don't need can continue to accumulate for you when you might need it later on. So don't treat it like I'm going to take out $1,000 a month or $2,000 or $5,000 a month, and if I don't need it all, I'll just spend it. Well, you'll run out of money pretty quick. So that's not a good plan. A good plan is to set 4% as your target, take money out as you need it, and if you don't spend the whole 4%, then let it accumulate in the account. And that's one more piece of good news about the 4%. If you have a diversified investment portfolio and you spend about 4% a year and the rest of the money accumulates in there, then you should have a rising principal balance over time, which means that your 4% actually goes up each year. So if everything works out the way it's supposed to, 5 years from now you'll actually be taking more money out than you are today. And of course you need to, because that's rising inflation over time. Okay? The one last thing I'll touch on is that since most retirement plan distributions are taxable, there becomes an issue about where to take the money. If you need to buy a new car or something and it's going to cost you $10,000, okay, one choice is to take it out of the savings account, the other is to take it out of your IRA. If you take it out of your IRA, you'll have to pay taxes on it. So what you may want to do is keep your eye on the tax man as you make those decisions in retirement. So if you target about 4% a year and you make adjustments only as needed, and if you keep an eye on the tax man, then there's a good likelihood that your retirement savings will last you throughout the rest of your life. That's it for this week on Money Made Easy. We'll see you next time. Thanks.